The Imagism Movement by Alex Eiler. The movement was an era of poetry defined by the rejection of Victorian and Romanticism conventions, as well as being a component of modernism. It included poets from the early 20th century, which included those of English and American origin. It was a provocation of visual imagery, using simple and low, non-elevated language to make it clear. It was preceded by the fireside poets in the 19th century, and was succeeded by the objectivist movement from the 1930s. The movement started from the ideas of T.E. Holman in 1908, basing poetry off presentation that was both precise and without unnecessary verbosity. In 1912, the movement was launched by Ezra Pound with the help of Hilda Doolittle's poem being sent to the magazine Poetry. The term imagisme was created to describe the type of poetry. By 1913, Pound had coined the characteristics that made up imagism, which is published in Poetry. It included that it was directly addressing the subject, it was to avoid commentary using abbreviated, clear language, and it was to use a musical rhythm instead of the metronome, as with free verse. In 1914, an anthology was published entitled Decem Majestas, edited by Pound, which included 10 other various authors and poets. During this time, Amy Lowell became a prominent lead. By 1917, imagism had dissipated. During this movement, many poets and authors came to light. Near the beginning of the movement, T.E. Holman was an inspiring figure in the ideas for imagism, as were providing the movement with its early ideas. In the ensuing creation of imagism, Ezra Pound along with Hilda Doolittle and F.S. Flint helped to create the basis for the movement. During the first publishing of the anthology, more poets and authors were developing and were establishing themselves into the movement. This included the latter leading figure of the movement, Amy Lowell, among others such as Ford Madox Ford, William Carlos Williams, James Joyce, Richard Aldington, John Koros, and Alan Upward. For my two poems, I selected In the Station of the Metro by Ezra Pound, The Apparition of These Faces in the Crowd, Petals on a Wet, Black Bow, and The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater, besides the white chickens. So in the poem In a Station at the Metro, we see the narrator observing faces of the people in the station, in the first line. Although these faces aren't ordinary, they seem as ghost-like. The second and final line deals with describing petals on a wet, black-veined branch of a tree, something that the narrator compares with the faces, making the poem a metaphor expressing that the faces are petals on a tree. The poem deals with two kinds of symbolism, in that the faces of the crowd and the bow and its petals. Altogether, the poem serves as a metaphor and creates unseen external connections. There are various items that can be connected to other themes and symbols outside the visuals in the poem, such as the description of the apparition of faces and the black bow, which may suggest the transient nature of human beings. Another symbol that can be seen within the poem could be connected to the natural or divine likeness of the people's appearance and its connection and disconnection with the world around us. Within these symbols, nature plays a major role in comparison with its human counterparts. As the title suggests, the setting of the poem takes place in the metro station, with the author being a quiet, yet imaginary observer of their surroundings. As for the poem's formation, the lines are set in one couplet, and is developed as a non-traditional haiku. Moreover, the last two words of the second line serve as an alliteration. In the poem A Red Wheelbarrow, the first two lines attest to an unspecified control, importance, or reliance on an item to which it is going to be revealed in the next lines. The third and fourth lines transition to the unspecified significance of a red wheelbarrow, differentiating from the title and disconnecting both the words wheel and barrow. The fifth and sixth lines then gives readers a visual difference of the wheelbarrow in that it's covered in gold and rainwater. The glazing also gives the wheelbarrow a glistening effect to it. The seventh and eighth lines, which make up the last couplets of the poem, give readers another visual to look upon, which is that the white chickens of the wheelbarrow sitting next besides. As with Ezra Pound's poem, the red wheelbarrow contains two major symbols in its imagery, which is that of nature and the farmland. However, instead of connecting items together, the poem seems to separate ideas and items, while still implying a connection as a whole between them, such as the separation of rain and water, and the wheel and barrow. The images used to describe the wheelbarrow lay a great significance upon the item. Maybe the wheelbarrow serves as a greater responsibility to the setting than just with the chickens. The imagery of the red wheelbarrow also seems to contain an unnoted connection between the natural beings of the world and the human creation within it, sitting side by side together. The setting of the poem doesn't come from the title, but it seems to come from the imagery within the reader's guess that the wheelbarrow is located on a farm with the imagery of white chickens next to the barrow. The narrator likewise seems to be someone who understands what's going on with the visual image being put forth and is reminiscent of it. The structure of the poem itself splits into 4 couplets, with the poem being developed as a free verse with the absence of capital letters and mostly punctuations.